Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving me the platform to ramble and to cover topics that are dear to my heart. I try and bring astrology into every topic that I do in every episode, because that is my point with this YouTube channel of mine, is to educate through astrology. I really just from word go want to say that this is a sensitive episode. It's an encouraging episode. My intention with this, I'd like to set my intention before anything, because it is sensitive. And I don't want anybody to feel invalidated, or that I'm saying that, how they're reacting or voicing themselves is not valid or not right. Okay, that is not at all what my intention is. My intention is linked to last week's episode and the fact that so much change is happening, and I'm asking us to make real changes now with these subjects that I'm going to be mentioning. Okay. So, and it comes from last week's episode, which was, well, one of the reasons is that it's linked to that. Uranus in Taurus wanting the status quo, wanting to stay in its comfort zone. That's the kind of energy that is, almost a bit of the devil, at times. And then Uranus's energy, which comes in and says, well, you need the change, you can't look at it like this anymore. It's outdated, it's not serving you. And Uranus energy wants you to advance, purely, and all of humanity. Okay, it looks outward. It's not self-focused, it is outward focused. Okay, so let me dive right in. I myself have been affected by some of the things I'm going to mention, so this is also very dear to my heart, and if I stumble and falter a bit, please bear with me. I'm just giving you the raw me. I'm not going to edit that stuff out, okay? That times of being perfect is long gone, thank God. Right, so in the last 2 weeks in my Facebook feed, there has been so much aggression and anger. And while it is very much, is the phrase well-founded, these are real experiences that people have had. I want us to see how we can move forward from that, okay? So on the 9th of August in South Africa, it is Women's Day. And this year, Women's Day, I saw a tremendous amount of posts, in the line of, I should be posting happy things, but I'm actually angry, and, if you men, and misogyny and abuse, and okay, there is a place for that anger, for sure. For sure. I have been at the hands of male abuse in more than one form. I have been very angry. I have been very sad. I have been, this is not about me. I'm just trying to paint the picture of that. I understand where it's coming from. Certain things have taken me years to work through. The fact that I'm sitting here in front of a camera exposing myself to, potentially millions of people, does not come naturally to me. Well, it does naturally. In my life map would say that I can do this, but the trauma that I've experienced has put a lid on that stuff for many, many years. Okay, so in line with what I was saying in my last episode of how we are not allowing certain things anymore. Example, treating people horrendously because we don't understand them. Marrying our young girls off to horrible old men, really. And furthermore, with what's been happening and that I saw on the 9th of August, very much, the male misogynistic kind of way the world has been running for very, very long, okay? We are not putting up with that anymore, and I think I can comfortably say we collectively, and not just we on a female or from females, okay? It is really across the board now. And so I wanted to really just pop on here today. I am going to be interviewing people who can help us look into understanding the patterns of these people that are inflicting this kind of pain onto society, because I would like for us to become educated in that as well, and I'm by no means professional in understanding that whatsoever. I am coming from maybe, explaining a few things astrologically, and just generally being an empathetic person, and having worked through my own stuff. Okay. Seeing as we're not going to be putting up with that anymore, it's a fine line between actually having something come from it and just voicing anger and hate and sending that out there, because in actual fact, I can't help but believe that that will actually just perpetuate these types of behaviors more and more and more. Okay. So my encouragement is, can we look in our own lives, in our own communities, with our children, how we can go about educating. This is the magic word for me in this episode. And even more than just our children. There is many, I've been reading many people saying things like, well, teach your sons not to rape. And yes, absolutely. That's exactly it. Teach them what needs to be done. Okay. Teach them how we want to be treated. Teach them about boundaries, about respect, about empathy, about the true responsibility that they have. Okay. Now, here's the thing that I know is going to probably trigger a few people. As much as we are saying we've had enough and we can tell you what we want and how we want to be treated, we also need to look with love, which might be difficult in the beginning, at why these things are happening. For me to persecute somebody because of a belief that they have that I don't agree with is not going to help that person understand my point of view, okay, and understand what it is that I need. And so if I look at what am I doing about this, because I was just saying, that we must all start doing things about it, is, just purely in my own business, is I am, as I've mentioned before, I do a beautiful 8-week package which goes really deeply into our inner workings, and it's just filled with lots of good stuff. But I'm also developing a package for men because, they have been left by the wayside as far as soulful teaching, as far as empathetic teaching, as far as real life teaching. Schooling is just not enough. Okay, the days of boys will be boys when they get into fights, that's over. Okay, the days of allowing men to trample on us because they believe they can, it's over. Okay, so yes, we're allowed to stand up and say enough, we've had it, screw all of you, but we need to implement things as to how we are going to move forward. Okay, because the trigger that we experience as people that have had trauma, sometimes that lashing out onto the people inflicting the trauma really actually fires them more to go and do that horrible, or to behave in that awful way. It's sad and it's terrible. But further to that, I want to say that it is not just about teaching our young children. It certainly very much, and it's very important, and how can we get this into our schooling immediately? Please, why is it not there? Okay, but we can't look in the past, right? We're moving forward. It's also educating our teenage boys. It's also educating our young men that are now leaving school and going into the world. It's educating men that are in their 40s. Long gone are the times of, they're too old to change. Listen, we can change. All of us can change. It's possible, okay? But it needs to be in the way that speaks to that person's language, okay? I'm stumbling over my words, and bear with me, please, because it is just, it's so important that I can really put across how important it is. Okay. If I look astrologically, right, so if I was to class what astrology I do, it would be called Western astrology. You get something called horary astrology, which I'm not going to go into too much. I am going to do an episode about it though, because it's amazing what you can do with it. You can literally ask it a question and, you know, it's kind of, okay. So if you were to do horary, then horary astrologers will say, you know what, we can tell you the sex of the baby that you're going to have. But what I'm trying to get at is that astrologically, if you look at my life map and you look at my husband's life map, you are not going to be able to see that that one's the female and that one's the male. Okay, so these types of, you know, men are like this and women are like this, and those are really very taught things. Okay, this is the way we're speaking to our children. You know, why should a little girl get a Barbie doll and a boy gets a gun? Why can a little boy not play with a doll? Why can a little girl not play with army cars? Okay, obviously we don't want to perpetuate the gun thing, so maybe that wasn't the right analogy. Why must a boy wear blue and a girl wear pink? And why do we laugh at boys when they wear pink? Can we get over that stuff? Can we move on? Can we get deeper about this? Okay. My son, who's amazing, is a very, very, very sensitive child, very sensitive child. And because I do astrology, I can pinpoint exactly why, and I know what it is that he needs. I know what language I need to speak to him to. Yes, I don't always get it right, okay, because I am also a personality and I also have my own things. But you see where I'm getting at here. We need to learn to speak individually to our individual energy, so that it doesn't become anymore, well, you're a boy and so this is what you need to do, and it doesn't become, you're a girl, therefore you can't say something and you can't be strong. And can I just swear and say that's such bullshit? Okay, well, can we please move on? And the time is right now for me to bring this episode out, because Uranus is in Taurus, because this is the time that we are breaking traditions, we are breaking through molds and things that are no longer serving us. And so the time is ripe for this. People have been trying to get people to look at things differently for time immemorial. I understand that. What I'm saying is now we have an opportunity, both as far as teaching and also as far as understanding in a new way. All right. When we look at men that rape, when we look at men that beat their wives, it's difficult to understand that, and our very first response when we are empathetic people is we want to fucking kill them. Again, excuse my language. I'm asking us, please, can we move past that, and can we look at real ways of educating now? Real ways. In other words, and this is why I'm going to be interviewing people that can actually really help us with how this works. But you know, it is at root level, and it can still happen at any phase of life. So, for example, the program that I'm developing for men will be slightly different to just my normal 8-week program, because bless our men, they don't know that they can look at themselves in these very deep ways, and look at themselves in a respectful way, and look at themselves as a feeling, emotive person who doesn't always have to be strong, who doesn't always have to be out working, you know, breaking their back. That they can be vulnerable, and that we as women can allow them to be vulnerable. So as much as there's education needed for men, there's education needed for women. This is why I'm saying, can we almost scrap the male-female thing, and can we just look individually? What are your needs? Not Eugene as a man, Nadine as a woman. You know, can we break it down and realize that all of us are emotional beings? Absolutely all of us are emotional. When you have this body and the skin and all the things that happen in this real world, it affects us. Okay, obviously, we all know that. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, right? I wish that I could take all of you on, I wish I could take all of you on a journey of me drawing up a life map for somebody, that you can see the beautiful, beautiful qualities that are in all of us, okay? And that even though, You know, traditionally in astrology, we've got these 4 elements: air, earth, fire, water. And so traditionally we add little labels and little explanations to them. So we will say water about, yes, water, that's the emotional one, you know, those are the emos and the, but all of us are emotional, okay? We all deserve respect. You might just not show your emotions that much because you have a lot of fire in your chart or whatever, okay? But you are emotional. So that is where we need to come from. We need to come from an emotional center, an empathetic center, okay? Please, can we look at how we can educate? You know, there's definitely a place for anger to be expressed. It is necessary. It is part of healing, is to get it out. But if we're just doing that, then how are we actually fixing this? How are we actually, what tools are we implementing here to get past that? Okay. It's up to you in your own personal capacity to see how can we deal with situations that are maybe not as aggressive as we've been taught to deal with them. You know, it's difficult to show love or to feel empathy when you know that your friend's husband is beating the crap out of her. Okay, it is difficult, but at the end of the day, there's something missing in that person that really needs to be balanced out. And if we're not doing that, then actually we're perpetuating that behavior more and more and more and more. And it's such a fine line because, you know, the way the world is geared at the moment, I mean, even if we look, let's take the horrible and terrible topic of rape, which is, you know, to anybody out there who has experienced that, I am deeply, deeply sorry, because that is a trauma that really should not be inflicted on anybody. And if we look at the old dated ways of what people were saying, which was basically boiling down to victim blaming, which is horrendous in itself, okay, we are now actually, and this is also, social media helps a lot with this because now we're connected all the time, right? But of course it doesn't matter what a woman was wearing. Come on, you know, really? We have the right to fucking wear whatever we want, okay? Please excuse me if I get passionate about this and swear. We have a right to do what we like with our bodies. That does not give you the right to inflict any of your, you know, macho crap on us, okay? Right, but what do we know about rape as well? That it's actually not about sex, it's about that power. So that's where we need to be going. You know, it's beautiful that people are protesting and getting out there. It really is wonderful. It creates the awareness of it, but now we need to go further. With Uranus in Taurus, it's perfect. This time is ripe. We've got these next 7 years to really implement these beautiful seeds of change, and to really bring out in people. And so let me just step back there. I wanted to talk about gender fluidity. This is another sensitive subject because many of our parents are just not understanding it, and we cannot force them to. You know, when you become quite set in your ways, even though I was saying earlier people can change at any age, that's true, but collectively, you know, I'm going to take the hippies as an example because I'm such a hippie at heart, and it's Woodstock 50th anniversary. How shocked were those old folk, those 50, you know, those 1950s sort of parents, you know, still very much in these, you know, this is my role and this is your role, and we don't step out of those roles, and we color perfectly in the lines, and don't you be coloring in that picture because that's Dad's picture and this is my picture, and that. Okay. And that was what was happening, no disrespect to that. But along came these kids and they just blew it all out of the water. And it was a beautiful Uranus aspect that was happening there. Uranus, Aquarius. Those are the two that go together. And that is really, number one, on an astrological level, what allowed people to go, hey, wait a minute, this is not cool. And secondly, of course, it was the Vietnam War that really spurred these children. I mean, the horrendous things that they were seeing, you know, and people's children who were, what, like 16, 17, being shipped off. I mean, it gives me the chills. I really can't talk about war. It's traumatic for me. That effect was so great, that moment in time was so great that 50 years later we are still talking about it. I mean, how beautiful is that, right? And what were the hippies teaching us? What were they trying to impart to us? Peace, brother. You know, you deserve to live as much as I do. You deserve to have a good life as much as I do. What else were they trying to show us? Love. I'm not talking about sex, because that's often the misconception with what was happening. Yes, of course, people were sleeping together, but that was not the reason. That was not the love that they were talking about. They were talking about being unified in love, which leads to respect, which leads to knowing about boundaries and not inflicting pain on others. These are beautiful, extremely necessary points for us to be teaching and living. Okay. So, this is what I am suggesting and encouraging us to look at, is taking that anger, channeling it into education, remembering that, you know, when I have, all of us, okay, right, when you're in a relationship, for example, and you say something to your husband, even your mother, whatever it is, whoever it is, you are saying it coming from you and how you perceive things and how you understand things, and they are taking it from how they understand things. All right, so I'm trying to encourage us to close this gap where, you know, oh well, this is how it's always been and I'm in charge of you, and yeah, we're going, hey, hang on, whoa, and just bringing it closer so that we can really meet each other here and meet each other and then. And of course I know it's going to take long. You know, I was reading a post the other day, and it was just shocking to me how rife racism still is in our country, and I guess in our whole world. I mean, I live in South Africa. For me, it is very first hand. And it's shocking. It's shocking that people are not finding it in themselves to stop and realize that that awful racism that they are spewing all the time is not only perpetuating continual violence between people that could actually be teaching each other so much, but it's hurting yourself. It's making you sick. It's you know, it's like, I'm trying to think of a tangible example of something that is actually hurting you in your hatred of this outside thing. So don't you think it's time for us to move past that, no matter how difficult it might be? I really am looking forward to, I am looking forward in my own capacity to working with. So I've wanted to work with men for very long. I run retreats as well, and I co-host some. And, you know, it was just interesting coming, you know, talking about opening them to men, and not the lady that I co-host with, but somebody in the group on the retreat at the time. We were just chatting about it, and they were saying, no, you know, it's really up to men, that men will feel safe with other men. And absolutely, I can understand that. And there are beautiful organizations that are really imparting, you know, awesome values in men and teaching them really about the beautiful responsibility that they have in that label. Okay. However, and this is also something that I feel is very important, it's important to cross over. It's important for me to be able to stand in front of a group of men and say, you know what, this is what we need as women. And it's important vice versa for men to stand up and say, you know what, this is what we need from you, women, because they also don't have it easy. You know, they've been thrust into this. I mean, if I had to raise my son to be, you know, the perfect man that would be what century from, he's not going to cope. He's not going to make it because he is not that person. And the more I try and force that on him, the more anger and anger and anger is going to build up in him, even if it's subconscious and he doesn't realize that that's actually what's causing it. Okay, so we're starting to do, not starting to, we've been doing this to ourselves and to our fellow humans for centuries now, where we are actually in our closed-mindedness and in our desperately trying to hold on to these gender roles, we are inflicting actually so much harm on each other. Really, we really are. So yes, our anger, there's a place for it, but I'm asking us please to move forward in love and in education. Purely blaming and pointing fingers and wanting to, you know, burn and just jumping on the wagon. I mean, you know how quickly it escalates. I mean, I've been on threads where the comments are horrendous, you know. It's so quickly that these sort of just this mob things happen. I mean, just an example, I'm going slightly off topic here, but I read something on Facebook the other day as well, where a lady had posted a photo of, it was a sign in a gynecologist's office, and the gynecologist said, you know, please inform us if you're going to be working with a doula, because basically we don't work with doulas. Wow, the comment section was outrageous. First of all, everybody assumed it was a man. Secondly, there was just this talk of like, women know how to birth their babies and we don't need gynecologists, and this is why they're angry and this is why they don't want doulas. Well, I wanted a home birth, but let me tell you, if I had a home birth, my child would not be here. I definitely needed my gynecologist. Okay, but that's not what I'm actually trying to get to. The point is, somebody commented with facts and said, listen guys, actually this doctor is a woman, number one. Number two, they did work with doulas, and if anybody else had just gone onto that page and looked at it, it's there, it's open. It's not like they had to know somebody to know this. Okay, it is right there on their Facebook page. They were working with doulas in 2017, so obviously something has happened for them to put that sign up there. But still, nobody was paying attention. It was just, terrible. It was, so do you see what I'm saying? Can we try not to perpetuate this anger that actually leads us nowhere? And we've all worked ourselves up, but there's no change at the end of the day. What we need now is real change. How are we going to get real change? Education, empathetic education, education with love, education with soulful understanding, communication, okay, with that education. Coming back to, I'm not sure now, sorry if I've actually mentioned the gender fluidity, but gender fluidity is becoming a big thing. And just like back in the hippie days where the parents were going, whoa, you know, you're growing your hair, are you crazy? Parents are not necessarily able to understand yet what gender fluidity means. Definitely there are some parents who are there and, you know, lovingly support their children. That's wonderful. But if I'm talking about on a whole now, and the general consensus, it is a scary thing how parents are lashing out at their children, or children come home and open up to their parents about their sexual preference, you know, and the potential backlash is really from not understanding what that means, not taking the time to sit down, to listen, to be educated, to love, in any case, regardless. Okay. What does it mean for a child to come home and say that their sexual preference is unusual or previously unusual? Okay. They're not hurting anybody. They're not murdering anybody. They're not uprooting anybody's existence. They are simply asking for their own spot in life. What do all human beings want? We want to be accepted. What is all human life? Sacred. Please, can that be what we impart? Can that be what we start filling our Facebook feeds with? Instead of just all of you, you know, I was invited to a Facebook group. Sorry, I'm just showing how this perpetuation is. And I think, I'm not going to mention the group, it was around Women's Day, which was the 9th of August. And I think that now they're actually starting to, you know, look at what can we implement to bring forward this education. But what was happening was people were just jumping on there, and in all their right, absolutely, like I said, you have a right to express that anger, but that was all it became. It was just became so aggressive and so angry and so much hate and so much, you know, hate. That is not helping our trauma either. Okay. So I'm asking for us to go into these topics and into these really traumatic topics with an open mind and look at how can we bring about healing and how can we bring about that this stops happening. Okay. And really the only way we're going to do that is through education in a loving way. So I encourage you within your community, or even just in your own home with your husband and your children, or your wife if you're a male man watching this, open those conversations. You know, it's still perpetuated. Even, I mean, TV games, computer games is such a massive part of today's world. I hate them, but that's just personal. Because I see the violence that is continually perpetuated through these bloody games that our children are being exposed to. And it's all fine and well me saying to my child, you know, that's not real life. I don't want you in that world. It's not real life. Oh no, Mama, no, it's not real life. It's here. It's in the cells. It's coming in. Can we stop that? Why? Why do we need violence to feel that we're passing an hour happily, and then meanwhile actually we pass 8 hours because the stuff is so addictive? Okay, guys, I'm gonna stop now. I will definitely be interviewing people that can help us truly to understand these energies that are happening in people that are sick and do awful things to each other, so that we can look at where and how do we educate. Obviously we want to do this in the right way.